Alright there guys, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about the most recent Simpsons episode, Treehouse of Horror 33. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about the middle section of that episode. Because as every Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode goes, it has three completely different stories, one after another. Today's video is only going to focus on the very middle one, because The Simpsons decided for this year's Halloween episode they were going to add a segment where they parody Death Note. Yes, an entire Halloween section dedicated to parodying an anime. So how did it go down? Well, I actually quite enjoyed it. So something really cool about it is it's not animated by the usual Simpsons animators. It's animated by the same people who animated Death Note all the way back in 2006 and 7. So the segment even looks like it's an anime, not a regular Simpsons episode. In this story, Lisa plays the role of Light Yagami. But instead of seeing the Death Note from outside of the window in school and then going to pick it up later, the Death Note instead drops right in front of her while she's simply walking down the street. But because of copyright, they can't call it the Death Note. So what do they call it instead? The Death Tome. But it works exactly the same way as the Death Note does. You write a person's name in and cause of death, and within 40 seconds that should happen. So Lisa gets home and Marge is watching the news on TV. And a famous cat who jumps inside of Mr. Sparkle boxes. Remember Mr. Sparkle? Nice reference to throw in there, considering Mr. Sparkle in the Simpsons universe is Japanese, so that works perfectly for this segment. So a guy is holding a gun to the cat who called Jailbird, which means it's Snake. So Lisa decides to write Jailbird in the Death Tome to see what will happen. She writes his name and cause of death being the usual heart attack, which of course in actual Death Note, if you don't specify a cause of death, heart attack is the default. So Lisa writes his name and heart attack, and it works. Snake has a heart attack and dies. It would have been so funny if when instead of saying heart attack when he got one, he said oucher, like he did when Mr. Burns became Fruit Batman. That'd have been way funnier. So now that Lisa's used the Death Tome and realised it works, she goes to her bedroom, and who's waiting in there? Ryuk. Played by Mo. Yes, they decided to make Mo Ryuk for this segment. And he tells Lisa that he's a Shinigami, he's a god of death, and she's like, oh, well, this is yours, so you can have it back. But Ryuk says, oh no, you've used it. Since you've used it, it becomes yours. So Lisa makes her way back downstairs, and Ryuk of course tells her that, just like in the actual Death Note, the only person that can see the Shinigami is the person who owns the Death Tome. Meaning Homer and Marge can't see him, and neither can Mr. Burns, who happens to be there. In this story, Homer is a salaryman, because of course he is. At least they're staying on brand. And Mr. Burns has this corporation called Global Warm that basically it's going to get rid of all the ice, so there's no ice, and well, all the wildlife that live on the ice will drown. So Lisa decides to write Mr. Burns' name in the Death Tome, and cause of death being in his sleep. Although his face does land on a grill. that was right next to him, so slightly less humane than what Lisa had in mind. So Lisa's like, well, that's me, save the world. And Ryuk tells her, no it isn't. You think Mr. Burns is the only member of Global Warm? He shows her that there's an entire page of people trying to create this very same dream Mr. Burns had. So Lisa gets to work on writing down all their names, but they do it in the way that they mirror exactly a scene from Death Note. Remember the scene where Light is writing down a bunch of people's names all in quick succession, and everywhere it just shows people dying? And the music gets really dramatic when he's doing it. Remember that scene? Yeah, Lisa does that very same scene. She even does the part where she swings the pen across the paper the way Light did. She even mirrors that. The only thing missing from that scene was the potato chip part of the scene. I'll take a potato chip and eat it. That scene didn't happen. They didn't give us that one. That would have made it even better if they did. So Lisa goes to sleep, and Ryuk's like, there's a whole second page of this, by the way. And I don't remember if this happened in the original Death Note, but in this parody, a cause of death could only be written once. You can't write the same cause of death twice. So Lisa's run out of ideas to where it gets to the point that she uses an alligator coming out of a toilet and then a lion coming out of a toilet. She's really struggling for ideas here. So next up, when she wakes up, she's just walking down the street as she was at the start of the segment, and a news broadcast from none other than Kent Brockman exclaims that there's somebody who knows what's been going on with why so many people have been dying. And then a voice that's clearly disguised to not be the person's real voice, starts explaining that the super killer must have been using a certain book or tome. And Lisa's thinking, hang on, how the hell did he figure that out? And what's the character's name? L. You know, fits right on brand with Death Note, because L is the... Thing is, Death Note's weird because the protagonist is also the antagonist in Death Note. Light's the main character, but he's also the villain. So, what's L? He can't, because he's not the protagonist, but he's also not the antagonist. But Lisa's like, wait a minute, I recognise that L. Because it's not just the letter L, it's the letters E-L, which still, of course, pronounces the word L. What in the Simpsons universe comes after E-L? Barto. Yep, Bart plays the role of L in this. And that's probably the most clever way the Simpsons have ever incorporated the El Barto name into an episode for anything. So Lisa's about to write down Bart's name in her Death Tome. But before she does that, she asks him, how the hell did you figure it all out? And Bart said, I read an even stupider book than yours. Your diary. And Bart's holding up Lisa's diary, so that's how he figured it out. So just as Lisa is about to write Bart's name down in the Death Tome, he pleads with her, like, you're really going to kill your own brother? So Lisa says, the Death Tome has corrupted me. And all of that, oh, I must pay for my sins, this thing has corrupted me. And Bart says, geez, you're going to bore me to death? So she writes down someone's name. You think it's Bart's name, but instead, she writes down the name Steve Johnson. This is because when Lisa and Ryuk first met, Ryuk told her that his name when he was a human was Steve Johnson. So she writes his human name down in the Death Tome to be crushed by some space junk, and that's what happens. He gets some random space junk, lands on him, and kills him. The one thing Lisa didn't realize is if you kill a Shinigami with the Death Tome, you then become the Shinigami, and Lisa transforms into a Shinigami herself. And the segment ends with Bart and Lisa walking down into the alley that they were just in. So out of this segment, I actually thought it was really good. I mean, the fact that we found out nearly a full week before the episode even aired that this was going to happen, that the Simpsons were parodying Death Note. Some people were quite vocal on Twitter saying that they didn't like it. Personally, I did like it. I thought this was going to be an interesting idea because the Simpsons have occasionally over the years made references to anime, whether it's Kumiko cosplaying as Sailor Moon, the Treehouse of Horror episode where there's a bunch of different Simpsons from different universes, and of course one of them shows the family as different anime characters. So they've played around with the idea of parodying anime in the past, but they never went this far where they made a full segment to Treehouse of Horror exclusively based on an anime. And a really damn good one at that. So what did I think overall? I thought the animation was really damn good because The Simpsons has never looked like this before. It turned the Simpsons world into an anime world, which I think it's great that the original animators that worked on Death Note 15 and 16 years ago were also brought in to animate this segment of the episode. Of course, the people's opinions I'm most interested in when it comes to this are people who don't watch anime but have seen this episode. I want to know what they thought of the Simpsons parody of Death Note. And even though it was only 7 minutes long, it's way better than Netflix's live action Death Note from 5 years ago. That was horrendous. The Simpsons definitely did a better job. The music in this segment was great, especially when they used the same music from the show, from Death Note, to mirror the scene of Light killing all those people all in quick succession when Lisa's doing it. I still would have preferred them to use the potato chip scene, because that's like one of the most iconic scenes in all of Death Note. Arguably, you could say it is the most iconic scene in all of Death Note. But the role of Mo to play Ryuk, I thought was a great idea. Bart to play L, and Lisa to play Light. I feel like they only made Lisa play the role of Light because their names both start with L. Of course, Bart being El Barto makes perfect sense and it's a great idea. Homer and Marge don't actually do anything at all in this segment. They're kind of just they're just there for the sake of it. But Maggie isn't even there at all. Like, Maggie's the only member of the family who's normally there who isn't there this time. But overall, I think this was a really good segment, and this was a very good Treehouse of Horror in general. If you've watched it, then in my opinion, the first segment is kind of meh. The second segment is quite good, And the third segment, the one after the Death Note parody, was actually my favourite one. Yeah, the one we've just spoke about in this video isn't even my favourite segment of the three, but because it's anime related, this was always going to be the one I was covering. But the only dilemma I have left is, which playlist do I put this in? The anime one or the cartoon one? Because it's based on an anime, but it's a cartoon that's parodying it. So I think because it's The Simpsons, I have to default put it in the cartoon playlist. Well, thank you everyone for watching. If you have enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. Did you have a good Halloween? Mine was as eventful as it always is. Not at all. And until next time, catch you later.